and Recovery Program Manager for your Washington State Department of Veterans Affairs. And I have the pleasure of introducing Janet Novinger. And she does a lot of work with our just individuals with brain injury within our community in Washington State. So thank you, Janet, for being here. And I'm going to pass it off to her and sit back and enjoy it.
Good. Hi, everybody. I'm Janet Novinger, and just getting to work with the great team of Heather and Mark. And we've been talking for months. We delivered a mindfulness workshop in March as part of Brain Injury Awareness Month, and this is the second in our series. And we're calling today's workshop Seasonal Practice to Nurture Mindfulness. And the season that we're in the midst of is spring. One of the I don't want to say easiest. I would say most pleasurable and accessible ways for us to tune in to the present moment, which is what we are looking for in mindfulness. How can I be in this moment right here and now with my intention, doing it deliberately, with awareness, and with all of my focus on this moment? One of the easiest ways for us to do that, one of the most accessible ways, is for us to connect with the natural world around us. And spring is blossoming out all over. As I look out the window that's over to my left, there are things in bloom everywhere. The trees are leafing out. Today in Seattle, the sky is blue. The temperature is mild. There's a crisp breeze. And I notice all those things and so many more about the spring season. I want to tell you that I've been teaching mindfulness, a lot of it in work settings and and in the community, a lot of work on mindfulness and living with brain injury, living with post-traumatic stress, living with family dynamics that are a challenge, living with anxiety and depression. And so I've worked with various populations on how can mindfulness and its experience right now in this present moment bring us into a richer, a calmer, a more joyful experience of our lives. And folks, one other thing I want to share along the way in teaching mindfulness and doing a lot of work with businesses around health and well-being topics, I became a yoga teacher. And so the yoga that I teach, and we won't be doing yoga today, but I'll be pulling on some of the principles. The yoga that I teach is very seasonal, because yoga really connects us with the natural world and helps us express nature through ourselves. And so a lot of what I've been doing for years and years now with yoga classes, and usually get just lovely responses. So a quote from Joseph Campbell that I just dearly love: "The goal of life is to match your heartbeat with the earth and to match your nature with nature." And as we begin this time together, I really would invite you to take your hands and put them over the center of your heart, perhaps not where your actual physical heart is, but right along the spine at the level of the heart. One hand over the other. You may or may not want to close your eyes depending on what works with you. And can you feel your heartbeat in the palms of your hands? Can you sense the rhythm, the speed, the intensity, the physicality of your heartbeat right now? And then expanding your awareness past your physical self. Can you get a sense of the heartbeat of nature on this particular day at this particular time. I end up with both of my feet connecting with the floor beneath me and pressing down. And I start to get a sense of the earth from that. I listen to the sounds of nature and I listen to see if nature will invite me to tune in with it today. It may require a little fancy on your part, and you may also already feel a deep connection with the world around you. So, allowing that to continue, a couple things I want to share. I think of a working definition of mindfulness as the conscious awareness of this moment. And it's a conscious awareness that I invite in on purpose. I invite in almost as though I were a scientist. I invite mindfulness in and I observe what happens. And I invite in awareness of this present moment with a great deal of compassion and kindness towards myself and towards those around me. How does my experience of my life change if I am in this moment rather than reliving the past or living forward and perhaps worrying about the future? So, one technical thing that I want to share to you with you today is that I'm working with two computer screens, and part of my presentation is on one, and I can see the participants list on another, and the chat box on one. For some reason today, Zoom won't let me see you. And it also doesn't let me see me. And so I hope that I'm centered in the screen and that you can see my face. And I don't have a real connection with that today. And if anybody has any feedback at some point that they need to see me more, just unmute yourself and speak up or type it in the chat box.
Thank you,
I
Janet. Hey, just to let you know, we're not seeing your slide deck if you're intending to share it right at the moment.
You can't see my slides?
No, I think you just need to reshare it.
That is so weird. So, Mark, thank you. You know what? I am going to stop the share that I've got going, okay? And I am going to share again. And I'm so glad that you told me. I really think on my end, folks, that Zoom is a little buggy today. And I'm not sure why. And let me see what I've got. Let me get back. You know, you can imagine I'm really disturbed by this. And I know that you could see this earlier. Wait a minute. Let me just get back to you guys.
And I'm assuming that's not just me as well. So, Heather, you can tell me if you can see her slide deck.
So I could
Okay.
see it when she shared it, but she quit sharing. So
Okay.
That is so weird, you guys. Okay, so I am
we're
going
good, I think.
give me just a minute. Let's see if we can get back to that.
So that may also be something on my
There
end.
you
So
go.
I'm seeing it now. Yeah.
You can see it now. Good.
Yep.
You're
And
good.
you guys, I just have to tell you, Zoom is really buggy today. And so we'll just go with that. And folks, we can have mindfulness about that. I'm going to see if I can advance my slide in that way. No, give me just a second. Can I advance? Yes. Okay. So I'm going to go to a completely different format of how I usually do Zoom. And folks,
And that may have been a glitch on my end, not yours.
well, I'm going to blame Zoom if that's okay, since I'm in a blaming kind of mood. But folks, I want to tell you, this is the joy and richness of the world that we live in, that we are dealing with so many technical things that can come up, and they could frustrate us, or we could laugh, we could have that sense of camaraderie. And if we will come into a mindful state, and I might say, so I can tell you, I went to this little place in my heart that felt pretty anxious. And so there was a physical thing. And the mental thing that went on was, oh my gosh, am I going to be able to manage this? Are we going to be able to do this? And then breathing and settling in, we allow it to be solved. And here we are in this moment. So, I want most of what I have today are practices for us to share. I think we learn a lot more about mindfulness by sharing a practice than by my lecturing. And so I hope that the slide right now says reflecting on the senses. Is that the slide you're seeing? Good. Alrighty. So folks, sometime today, before the day is over, I'm going to invite you to spend a little time outside with no work to do. In my perfect world, I would sit under a tree with my hips and my spine literally up against the trunk of the tree. That might have my legs spread out before me, or perhaps they'd be bent with my feet on the ground. And I would simply breathe. Probably you're not going to go do that right now. And you'll have handouts from this presentation as a reminder, but also the recording as a reminder. Perhaps you're sitting next to a window right now. And if you are, can you take a moment to look outside the window and to notice the quality of light? Are you in a place where the sky is overcast and the sun is filtered through the gray of that overcast? Are you like me in a place where the sun is just shining brightly, the sky is blue overhead, and there are some fluffy clouds out there also? What kind of sensory input? And if you're at work in a cubicle, what kind of sensory input did you have as you entered the office today? Or do you have any sense of windows beyond you bringing some information in? So will your eyes take in the available light and quality of light? Will your skin take in? Skin also absorbs light, but the sense of the warmth or the coolness of this day. As you were out and about earlier, did you have any sense of a gentle breeze or perhaps a gale force wind? And can you hear any sounds from the natural world around you? When we tune into a spring day this way, we might notice that its qualities are very different than the quality of a summer day or a day in fall or the day of the winter that we have just left. And folks, something that I have learned from my study of mindfulness and from my practice of yoga is that each one of us is a part of nature. And that we are at our healthiest, we have our deepest sense of well-being, and we have one of our easiest paths to mindfulness when our focus is lined up with nature. And in just a couple minutes, I'm going to hope that we can have a chat about this. Meanwhile, let me see if I can get the slides to advance this way. So, before we have a conversation, I'd like to share with you a breath that is what I call the spring's breath. And it aligns us with what's going on in nature and the length of our days at this time of the year. So we're not very far out from the spring equinox, when day and night were exactly the same length. And so in the days and the few weeks leading up to the equinox, and the days and the few weeks after the equinox, I find that a balancing breath brings us into the balance of our days and nights and of this season. So I'm going to move back a little bit and sit up straight. If you're able to lengthen your spine so that the top of your head reaches up towards the sky and the lowest point of your spine, your tailbone, is pulling down towards the earth. The earth will really help us bring more length and ease into our spines, our central nervous systems. And if you're able to have both of our feet sensing into the floor, that sense of contact, left foot, right foot, a sense of pressing down, and a sense of balance between the left foot and the right foot, the left side of our bodies and the right sides of our bodies. And with a balanced breath, if it's available to you, breathe in through your nose and out through your nose. This is just if it's easy and accessible. Breathing in through the nose, pausing for a moment when the lungs are full, breathing out through the nose, pausing for a moment as the lungs have emptied, and then the inhale comes in again on its own. This is a natural breath, breathing in to full capacity, a little pause, breathing out to full capacity, a little pause. We can call it a balanced breath or a circle breath, as the slide really depicts. And then we want to look for balance between the inhale and the exhale. And folks, the easiest way for me to find balance is that I count my breaths. I want the inhale to match the exhale in its length, in its intensity, and in its quality. And so I count it to myself. I'm going to count a couple breaths for you and then invite you to continue the counting on your own. This is what I say internally. Breathe in, 2, 3, pause. Breathe out, 2, 3, pause. Breathe in, 2, 3, pause. Breathe out, 2, 3, pause. And I'd like to invite you to breathe in and out at a comfortable pace. I might be making the breaths too long or too short, so I won't continue counting. Your body knows the right pace for you. So 5 or 6 breaths that you count, balancing and evening out the length of the breath, inhale and exhale, the intensity of the breath, and the quality of the breath. I want to say that many of us, when we're at these webinars, if we're at work especially, are in multitasking mode, which I understand very well, if you can allow yourself to breathe with complete mindfulness and awareness, 3 to 5 breaths. You'll be giving that multitasking self of yours a wonderful break. and then letting that counted breathing go, that planned or directed breathing go, and let your breath do whatever it will do at this moment. I'd love to see in the chat box just any ways that this breath affected you, any questions that you have about it, anything you noticed. Doesn't all have to be positive, like, wow, that was a fabulous breath. It could be, that was really awkward and uncomfortable, or anything else that you noticed. I want to tell you that when we do these seasonal breaths, we acknowledge that we are a part of nature and we allow ourselves to line up and be in sync with that nature's heartbeat that we talked about in our very first quote. So anything showing up in the chat box? Heather, I'm not seeing anything. Are you seeing anything?
Yeah, so
Good.
Michael Copeland said it made me realize how little I pay attention to myself when I'm working. And
Yes.
Sophie stated I started to feel sleepy. Gosh, I have to agree with you, Sophie.
It's a great comment. And so you guys, there really is something going on my end with Zoom because I have the ability to type a message, but not to see anybody's messages today. And so we'll just, kind of bow to the Zoom presence here and go with it. But you know what? I think that was Michael, I think you said. Michael, when I am in rooms with people and I am getting to watch them breathe, I will see a lot of yawning going on. And a lot of people will say, like, I really felt sleepy when we did this breathing. One of the things I always think is we get so tense and so involved in our work and we move so fast through the world that I think we're breathing like from the collarbone area and we're only letting the breath come here. And I think our bodies and our brains are deprived of oxygen. And so I always think that that sleepy response, one may well be telling me I'm not getting enough rest, which is true, but also may be saying like, please, more oxygen. I need this. Heather, any other comments in the chat?
So Michael agreed, or I should say, Jonathan agreed with Michael that the same comment that he how little he pays attention as well. So
Yeah.
that was it.
And folks, you know what? It's why we do mindfulness practices because as we run through our days from thing to thing to thing, we are often not paying attention. And so taking a few minutes out every once in a while to do a breathing exercise, lots of my clients will set an alarm like for every 3 hours just to stop and take 5 mindful breaths. So that would be something you can try. I'm still the old-fashioned person that puts sticky notes on everything. And so I'll put little notes up. In fact, I've got one by my bed right now that reminds me to do a practice that I'll be teaching down the road where we inhale and exhale through only one nostril, which also has some wonderful balancing properties. And it's just by my bedside, so I remember to do it. Okay. Folks, I'm going to move on. And I'd love for us to have a bit of a conversation in chat, or you are so welcome to unmute yourself and speak to me. I'm always excited to hear people's voices on Zoom. But when you think of spring, what are the qualities that you ascribe to spring? So what words or qualities come to mind? And let's just start with that. And oftentimes in Zoom, we can just kind of popcorn these out, one word quickly entered into the chat.
So Jonathan said renewal, and Sophie said revival.
Beautiful. Anybody else?
Michael said new beginning, and Jonathan said sunshine.
Good. Ah, beautiful. And you got, as you see the next few slides, you're going to say, we are in sync, right? And hopefully we're in sync in the world around us. Here's something else that requires more than a word. And we're about 3 weeks out of winter now. And winter has very different properties, and sometimes the properties really overlap with each other at these equinox times. How are the qualities of renewal, revitalization, new beginnings, and sunshine different than the qualities that we experience during winter? What changes? What shifts? Any thoughts on that?
There isn't any comments. So if you guys have one, like I said, you can. So Jonathan said, I feel the winter in the Pacific Northwest is often associated with isolation.
Yes. I agree with that, Jonathan. Absolutely. A lot of us huddle inside, right? Or we're out and about, with our anoraks on and our, trying to stay out of the rain and not so much connecting with others. Absolutely.
And then Michael said lack of daylight, vitamin D, and Jonathan again said, and spring brings in renewed connection.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so, folks, when I think about mindfulness and this season, I think about what am I moving away from and what am I moving towards? And I think that spring invites a lot of words that start with RE, right? That renewal, that revitalization, reparation, repairing, right? Reconnecting. And I look for how can I watch myself in interaction with the natural world and with other people, and how can I bring forth these qualities in my life? And so some of the words I think of are beginning, birth, and blossoming. I also think of renewal, revitalization, and beginnings. So let's take a few minutes, folks, to reflect on your particular transition from the winter you've just experienced into the spring that you are now experiencing. How did your body respond to the shorter days of winter? Did it isolate? Did it disconnect? Was there something inside yourself, maybe a quality that you really love about yourself, or a project that you really wanted to get done, that became dormant? And just sit with that a little bit. And folks, when I want to reflect, look back, consider, go inside, I am very aware of my body. I allow my hips to press down into the seat beneath me, my feet to connect with the floor, the top of my head to have a sense of rising up, making room in my spine. And then notice the changes that are happening in your body, in your mind, in your heart, in your soul, as you line up with these lengthening days, this sunshine that has returned, possibly a sense of connecting more with all of the things around us, including the people in the natural world. And folks, I would invite you to go into your heart and to say, is there something that is longing to be born within myself? And if there is, what is that? we're into tulip season now. In my yard at least, we've moved from daffodils to tulips. I'm not sure if that's true of where you live. Um, but as I look at the bushes and the trees and the flowers that are blooming around me, I line up and ask what within myself wants to bloom. And so I'm going to just be quiet with those questions for a minute or so. Answers to these questions might show up in your body. They might show up as an image or a picture in your mind. They might show up as words. They might show up as feelings of deep longing and wanting to move towards something. And so I just want to ask if there's anybody who would like to share, and this can be a very private thing. And when I think about life planning and how it is we can be really present to our lives, these are the questions that spring invites. And so, did anybody have an experience as we thought about what was waiting to be born in our lives, at what is wanting to blossom, that you'd like to share with the group? I can tell you, for me, there's the actual gardening, right? I have a beautiful yard and I love to garden. And so that's a pretty easy thing. You know, there are plants everywhere that are wanting some attention, and seeds, lettuce, for example, waiting to be planted. Um, I also think at this time of year, if I will be quiet enough that whatever is next in my work shows up. And so for me, I think about, is there a workshop that I want to develop or a project that I've put on hold that it's time to come back to? And I set aside some quiet times in my life where I am not busy. This may be me sitting under the tree with my spine lined up with the trunk of the tree. And I ask these questions and then I listen. There is a quality of mindfulness in our lives that is about asking questions and listening for answers. Heather,
Um,
did you? Yeah.
So in the chat, Michael says, I'm hoping that my son's interest in baseball will continue to grow and bloom. It's his first season and he's having a blast. And I'm hopeful that this will stick. Not sure if this fits, but that is what I was thinking.
Michael, it fits beautifully because the impulse to have that thought, right, came from within you. And then the expressing it, I would just guess that in terms of experiencing this with him, you also get to experience some things through him, right? And that there just has to be great joy in that. I am imagining that this allows something to blossom in you as a parent, and that's all going on with your sons having a blast with baseball. Beautiful. And can I just also say, and Michael, this is actually a great example because we end up with these thoughts, intuitions, impulses. I think if you really pay attention to this, it may change what you do. You might be more likely to spend more time with your son in baseball, right? To encourage this blossoming within him. if you don't notice it, right? Or it's just one more thing that's happening in your day. You might watch some games together. You might practice together. You might, kind of have some informal neighborhood games. And that just this noticing and this hope can set things off in a direction that will enrich both of your lives. Heather?
And, Michael says, I played baseball in college, so it's exciting to see him taking to it. Love
Oh,
it.
generation to generation, right? This is just very beautiful. So, folks, we can take time to breathe. We can take time to observe nature. We can take time to notice the qualities of a given season. We can take time to reflect. And all of those things can help us line up with this season and have a really rich experience of our lives mindfully lived with this season in mind. I'm going to go on just a little quote. And you guys, I have to move a couple things here. Spring is when life's alive in everything. And I want to ask Mark and Heather, can you still see my screen? Did that stop the sharing?
Nope,
Nope.
you're
All good.
Beautiful. Beautiful, beautiful. I was thinking that when anyway, you don't need the details. So, folks, we want to attune to this beautiful, rich, lively season. And another quote that I love, the beautiful spring came, and when nature resumes her loveliness, the human soul is apt to revive also. So asking yourself, what in me is waiting for renewal? What in me is waiting to resume and revive? I think that images, both in photos, but also in the world around us, one of the delights of my life right now is to see what small growing things are doing that great effort of pushing through the earth, and what small things are waiting to be born in me, in my life, in the life of my children, my colleagues, the people around me. So, folks, we are not going to do a full tree pose as you see in this photo today, because this is not a yoga class. And we're just not equipped. I'm not equipped to see you and make sure you're safe and know where you are. And yet, I wanted to show the photo because you can see that the yogi has a pose that is reflected in the tree behind. And in my yoga classes, we spend several weeks each spring. I work with brain injury survivors in yoga. And so our bodies take all kinds of shapes, and we're always sure that our balance is good enough to support our version of this pose. And I'd like to still do a version of this pose because the energy and qualities that are called for inside our bodies with this pose are the very energies of spring. And it's another way to help us line up. And so I'm going to invite you again, possibly if you're able, to sit a little more forward in your chair. You want your sits bones, literally the bony parts of our butts that reach down and connect. And you know what? If I take both hands and put them under, if I sit on them, right, I can feel those bony protrusions that are really part of my hip and pelvic structure. And I want to feel them pressing into the chair, to sense them pressing into the chair. There is equal weight distributed left side and right side. And I send my awareness from those hip bones down through my thighs, through my knees, through my calves, into my heels, the soles of my feet, into my toes. There's an equal sensing down through both feet. The bottom of my spine reaches down towards the earth, the top of my head up towards the sky. There is space in my body. And folks, if the movement is available to you, you could cross the right ankle, possibly just over the left foot. I want to tell you, I'm dealing with a broken kneecap. And so I can't even do today what the yogi is doing with the ankle over the knee. I can cross my feet and get the energy of this pose. If you're able, if it's available to you, you could bring your right ankle up and cross it over the left knee. And then, folks, there's a couple of, there actually are many options available to us with our hands. One of the things I often do is I press the palms of my hands together and I pull the palms down so that the palms are pressing into each other and they are also pulling down around the heart area. And I take several breaths in this pose, inviting my heartbeat to align with the heartbeat of spring, the heartbeat of nature. I invite my system to calm down and to slow. You can bring the palms over the head like this. And if movement is not available to you in your arms, attention can come to the heart center and to a sense of the outsides of our bodies, front, back, and sides, coming into focus in the heart, and a sense of heaviness in the heart, heaviness and awareness. So all options for what your body allows for you in this tree pose today. Deep breaths, lining up, noticing what your body tells you about this movement and any messages from the mind and the heart. And then, folks, if you have moved your arms, allowing them to come down and perhaps palms rest in the lap, and we uncross however it is that our ankles and the opposite knee engaged with each other, we disengage that. And because we're at a time of great balance in the world, let's do the other side. So if you crossed your left ankle over, if you crossed your right ankle over the left foot or knee, now let's cross the left ankle over the right ankle or the knee. And allow the body to lengthen and to relax. And allow the palms to press in together, either at the heart or overhead. Or if what is available to you today is that sense of coming deeply into the heart, the energies moving from the outside into the inside. Several deep breaths. You may notice a difference between the first practice of the right side and this practice engaging the left side more. That's not unusual. One may seem easier or more fun or more available. Our injuries and our life experiences change this from one side to the other, as do our natural body structures. And so coming out of that pose, however you did the pose today, and just noticing, and if you'd like to chat about this and share anything that you noticed about this experience. So folks, just as in the sporting world, some sports, skiing, right, lend themselves to winter. Some sports like baseball really lend themselves to spring. When we do these gentle movements, we can do movements that line us up with the season. And I just want to ask, anybody have anything to share in the chat?
Not yet.
Heather, thank you for watching that. I appreciate that. And folks, these are very deeply internal things. And if we were in a yoga class together, you wouldn't be talking about it. So how about if we just move on? And Heather, you can definitely share if something else pops up. So folks, how many of you, how many of us are in the middle of spring cleaning, right? That spring light just illuminates every crumb on my kitchen floor that I've missed over the winter. And there, as a mindfulness practice, we can also kind of scrub ourselves out inside. And so there is, I just found a huge crud this morning and said, how in the world did I overlook that? So our homes, our bodies, our yards, our cars, our offices are all crying out for our attention. And yet, internally, we may need some cleaning too. Mindfulness can help us notice our patterned habits, the places that we get stuck, things we're doing that don't serve us anymore. As the days are longer and it's light, at 6 o'clock or at 5 o'clock, we may want to do something different at 6 than we did during the winter. Sometimes our thoughts get stagnant. And so, is there anything in your daily routine, the way you eat, the way you care for yourself and others, the way you interact, that could use a good spring cleaning? This may be something that you're going to want to ask yourself in the days to come. I can tell you that this isn't something that thoughts just come to mind just like this. I do know that I am starting to have, in the winter months, it's a little harder for me to have my movement and reflective time first thing in the morning. And now as I'm waking up at 5 and it's light, I'm starting to do a time of prayer and meditation, and the movement that I do every morning, the yoga, wants to happen at 5 rather than more like 7 o'clock. And so there's just this natural change that goes on in my schedule this time of the year. What could you do in the days ahead to support an internal cleansing? And I just want to give you the chance, folks, I promise you that if we were all in a room together, we would be talking to each other, right? It's the difference of Zoom, and it's the difference of just being able to say something out loud and having to type it in chat. I think about, I don't remember if it was Jonathan or Michael's. We're talking about the isolation of winter and the connection. I think we want to do these Zoom workshops. They are important. We learn great skills, and yet we connect in a different way. So Heather, did someone write in?
Yes, so Michael said, in all honesty, I was a bit distracted. I share an office.
Yes, yes. So Michael, thank you so much. The world we live in, right? At this point, it may be, and folks, I know that lots of times when people do these things and get the recordings, they'll keep the recording and then go through and do like the breathing along with me, because it's easier to do it when someone's guiding it. You may come back and really reflect on some of these things, I promise that there is a benefit for taking the time to do the ones that resonate with you. All right. I'm going to go. I have one more breathing practice for you before we're done. And I honestly, I think about spring as the season of yes. It's renewal, it's revitalized, it's reconnecting, it's regrowing. And it's the time in my life when I say yes to everything. And so there is a beautiful breath that is called the yes breath. And it can be really tiny. It can actually just be energetic, but it can be really tiny. And think about ourselves when someone's asking us to do something and we're just nodding yes. And so the movement might be as small as just a tiny nod. If that's the movement that's available to you, it could be played out in the blinking of our eyes of a yes. And you may have the availability to start to let this nodding move through your whole spine. And for me, what that looks like is that my chin comes down to my collarbone, and there's a rounding of the shoulders coming in, and my spine kind of makes a C shape. And then when my chin comes up, my spine straightens up. This movement is led by the chin. And so breathing out, my body rounds, my spine rounds. Breathing in, my spine lengthens. And sometimes people like to add a little bit of movement in the shoulders. So the shoulders are more active. My chin comes down, my shoulders are rounding in, my spine is a C shape. And then led by the chin, I come back up to straight. Breathing out, I form a C shape. Breathing in, I come up to straight. Or breathing out, my chin comes down, maybe just the tiniest fraction of an inch. Breathing in, my chin comes up. Or energetically, breathing out, my spine contracts and the energy, the sense of my spine is contracting. Breathing in, my spine expands. A couple of more of those on your own. We're really at the end of our time together. And so for you to please fill out the evaluations that Mark is providing. We'll find that so helpful in guiding our future trainings. I want to close with another quote, and then I know that Heather and I can stay for, well, Heather, I think you can stay for just a bit. If you've got individual questions, folks, we're happy to chat. A really beautiful mindfulness teacher, Mark Nepos, says, strength and peace come from our hearts beating in unison with all that is alive. And folks, as our time together is wrapping up, even though we are separated in space, it's my belief we have the ability to connect. Can we just take several balanced breaths together and find our hearts beating with each other and with all that is alive outside our windows in this beautiful world that we live in. It's been my pleasure and honor to be with you today. And I welcome any comments you have to make as we wrap up today.
Sophie said thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Same from Jonathan.
Thank you.
And thank you all for being with us today. I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Raven.
It's so good to be with you all.
And we will get this posted to our video library, so you will have it on our website. And I will drop that also in the chat
Good.
so that you can find it. And it's in our toolbox in our video library.
Beautiful.
So hold on a second. I will drop that really quickly.
Beautiful.
Here is our website. And under it, you'll find our toolkit and our Forward Together peer group. So there's a bunch of usable tools that you can utilize, but we'll make sure that this is in our video library, as well as some of our previous workshops we've had.
Beautiful.
Thank you all for joining us today.
Good. You guys, I'm going to stop sharing and I'm going to close my slides if you don't mind. And I just want to see if I can figure out what was going on with my chat, because that's something that's never happened before. And again,